when I was at school, perhaps things were a little bit simpler. When I was at school, this is going back a while now, you more or less had very specific paths that you could follow at university. And I think now it can be quite confusing. We don't always know, what we want to do when we leave university, and even what we want to study at university. It's hard to know, what are we passionate about? So one of the things that I was always passionate about was working with children and young people. I like the way young people think. And I really enjoy learning from them as much as I enjoy teaching them. And so I'll share a little bit with you about sort of what a teaching career might look like. So once you have graduated from high school, the thing about teaching is that it doesn't really matter kind of what degree you end up choosing. You can still end up going on to do a teaching degree. And teaching is enjoyable because there are different jobs that you find yourself doing, and you don't always necessarily see that benefit immediately, right? Or maybe you see it very quickly. An example is Dr. Ashfaq, like maybe you treat a patient and you see that they go from being stressed with tooth pain, and then they leave you and they look much better, and you get to see that. The thing about teaching, the thing that's really nice about teaching is it's sort of self-motivating, because the fruits of what you're doing just kind of unfolds in front of you. And it's really enjoyable taking a student and maybe they don't know about something, and you break that topic down into smaller concepts and you give those concepts to those kids, and you watch them develop, and you watch them develop not just in terms of what they know, but also you watch them develop as people, and you watch them develop in confidence, and you watch them develop in motivation. And that's what kind of keeps you going, because it's a very, very unique and special opportunity to have in the life of somebody else, is to watch them grow and develop in that way. And so that's really the hook. So if you're the kind of person that likes working with people and you have quite a bit of patience, you do need quite a bit of patience when you're working with kids. Kids are quite unpredictable, and you don't always know what they're going to do and what they're going to say next. But it's a great career for someone who's looking to help develop others and to give back. And that was sort of my main thing. Was I feel very, very blessed, because my entire education in the UK, from nursery right up to my PhD, I didn't pay a penny for it. And so back when I was at school, it was completely free, and I feel compelled to give back and make a difference. So that's really what I'm passionate about. If you go into teaching and you end up doing a teaching degree after your bachelor's, then basically it's a further 2 years. People are often wonder, what is the money like? What are the prospects like? It varies. If you're in the public school, sometimes the prospects can be good, but it's not always easy to get a position within the public school system. Islamic schools, I often will take someone without a bachelor's in teaching, a teaching degree. And that is because sometimes I want to train them in my own way. So there are opportunities in teaching without that. But, it can be a struggle. That being said, in an Islamic environment, it's a great environment to work in, where you get the support of Muslim brothers and sisters. So I know you only said I should take 5 minutes. I'm going to kind of leave it there. And, inshallah, if anyone has any questions, they're welcome to ask me after that.
Perfect. Very good. Well, you have 53 seconds left, but
that's okay. Better early than thrown on. That's fine.
Yes, we'll use that up in the question. So Let's see, Brother Allah, are there any questions for Dr. Aisha as of yet?
No.
No, okay, I don't see any either. I have a question, Dr. Aisha. So,
Sure.
what role should a teacher play, or can a teacher play, in guiding a child's, I guess, journey towards choosing a career?
Yeah, it's tough. I think, there are two extremes here. So there's one extreme, I was one extreme where I enjoyed everything. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do because I enjoyed everything. And that's tough. And when you're in that situation, it can be really almost difficult to choose what you'd like to do. The other extreme is someone who just has no passions at all in anything that is career oriented, right? And I think in the community, we tend to go for very traditional career paths. But I would honestly say that there are so many things that you can do, and so many pathways to choose from now. So that aspect is, I think as a community, we've got a little bit of growing to do as well in terms of how we view what our kids will do in the future. But I think that, the best advice I can give to any young person is to do lots and lots of different jobs. And this is what I did. I have worked on a market stall selling pottery. I have worked as a dental assistant as well, as you know. I have worked in shoe stores. I've done very menial jobs. And I worked, throughout my childhood, I worked in my parents' store. And all of those things not only give you an appreciation and a value for, how hard work can be sometimes, how tough the real world can be, and all the different people that you encounter in the real world. But they also give you a whole different set of skills in terms of just working with people and dealing with people and knowing what you want to do. One of the subjects I didn't like at school was science. And after being a dental assistant, I realized that science in the real world was actually quite enjoyable. And one of the things I thought I would never do was go into research science and do lab work. And that's exactly what I ended up doing, because it's about finding the right project. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to place you wherever he's going to place you. But I think, just getting that world experience is crucial.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Jazakallah khair. Yes. Speaking of dental assistants, there's a big shortage of dental assistants out there right now. Huh? So
I think it's a bit too late for a career change. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Aisha, you did mention about teachers and how they get into the public school teaching system. I've heard from many students of teaching, and students looking to get into teaching, that they look at that path and they say it's so long, it's so treacherous. So how true is that? And how do students navigate through that?
Yeah, it can be tricky. It depends. For example, if you're a young person that's not open to, for example, sometimes you might need to move from the city that you live in if work isn't available. It's tough. And, we have to realize that these things come in ebbs and flows and depend on the environment and the numbers in the city and so on. But, some of the most amazing teachers that I've interviewed, for example, have gone and had experiences up north working with Indigenous children, and their lives have really been touched by those experiences. And I think as young Muslims, it would be my hope that kids seek out those kinds of opportunities. We need to get away from this traditional route that we take. We have so much as an ummah to offer the world, right? But sometimes we kind of are stuck in our little shell. And, I hope that we have adventurous kids, because our parents, let's face it, our parents were very adventurous. They went well out of the box and did, you know, what their forefathers had not done. They traveled overseas, they moved to a different place, and they set up a home and they raised kids there. And so, you know, we have done the same. So I think sometimes we're a little bit scared to allow our children those opportunities. But I would encourage kids to think long term about, you know, short term, what world experiences could I have that would really contribute positively to the world?
Very true. Very true. Yes, and you're right. And that's and you touched on a very important subject, regardless of what profession, and that is to put yourself out there and serve the ummah, you know,
That's right.
and whatever
Yeah.
career you choose, have that in the background. I mean, that probably, in my opinion, would be one of those conditions that we should encourage our kids to look at, no
Yeah.
matter what career they choose.
Yeah. 100%. Because otherwise, you know, one can earn money if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written money for you. And this is often our, you know, impetus is how much will I get paid? You know, what can I do that will give me the greatest income and so on. And I think it's tough because there's no guarantees in anything. Lots of kids, I mean, if you think about the number of people that apply to medical school that don't get in, right? It's astounding. But all of those are top students that usually apply and they have something to offer. But it doesn't mean that we all have to do that traditional path. And I have always gone where Allah has sent me. And alhamdulillah, I think personal satisfaction in your work is really important, and to just take satisfaction in anything that you do, because there's always a journey and the experience of the journey is more important than the end of that journey.
True, true, very true. I'm going to deviate laterally for a minute here, as opposed to following my linear train of thought, and request Brother Riyadh to maybe make a comment on the same question because it pertains to the same field. So maybe Brother Riyadh, if you could also shed some light onto your perspective on how you know, students who are looking to go into teaching can sort of navigate through that problem that I've mentioned.
Sure, thank you for having me. The teaching career is, as Sister Aisha explained quite well, there are obviously different paths that one can take when looking into teaching. I'm not sure about the Ottawa region, but here in Toronto and the Greater Toronto area, there are multiple opportunities, especially nowadays, to get into the public school boards. But you know, as you mentioned, like, you know, people do look at it as a lengthy path, especially, you know, the rule was actually up until recently that you had to become a supply teacher and do that for a while. And then once you earn enough seniority, you can get onto something called an LTO, which is a long-term, you know, occasional teaching position. And then eventually you'll get a contract position with the board, and then, you know, you have a job, a contract. But the government in Ontario recently, you know, took that away and are making changes to that, and basically making it such that the best candidate can get the job, the most qualified person can get the job. Is no longer based on seniority. But you know, as Dr. Aisha mentioned, it's something that, you know, if you have a passion for it, it's something that you really enjoy, and things that you think that you can give back to the community, then, you know, it's something that's worth the wait almost. And you put in the work, you put in the effort, and inshallah, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make that path for you. You know, life is not, you know, as a lot of people go through life, they quickly realize life is not a straight path from point A to point B, right? You go through multiple changes, multiple stages in your own life that will take you down different roads. And I understand that, you know, if you do have that drive and passion, and you put in the work and put in the effort, then inshallah, you know, that hard work will definitely pay off.
Inshallah. Perfect. Any Jazakumullah khair, Brother Riyadh. I'm just going to check, Brother Allah, any questions for Dr. Aisha?
No, so far it's a quiet audience.
From the panelists or from the attendees, no other questions, right? So far? Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. Dr. Aisha, Jazakumullah khair. We're going to request Brother Riyadh now to please mention a few words on the subjects that we spoke of, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers directly for yourself.
Jazakum khair. So thanks again for having me. It's a pleasure to join you all this evening. I will speak briefly about my experiences in my role. I counsel a lot of students in my career. I've been in education for over 15 years now. I have most of that time has been counseling students with regards to a number of different things, but especially with career exploration, etc. I'm going to speak from a high school perspective at first. So if there are any high school students in the audience or any parents of students, this may be of some benefit, inshallah. When students are in high school, it's I often get the question, what should I study? What should I go into? What job fields are out there? And I often say it's not the end of the world if you don't know what it is that you want to do. As a 17-year-old grade 12 student graduating high school, it's okay not to know what you want to do for the rest of your life. A lot of students get into their undergraduate degrees, they graduate after 4 years and they still don't know what exactly they want to do, which again can be okay as long as you have certain things in place for your future success, inshallah. What I will say is that, and I know that Dr. Aisha actually touched upon this briefly, that have that passion, look at what you enjoy, right? I often tell students to look at a few things. Number one, what you enjoy. What do you have that passion for? What are you quote unquote good at? So what fields, what subjects are you, have some strength with? That's a good indication of maybe what you want to pursue later on. And if that doesn't work out, if that path, if that approach doesn't necessarily work for you, there's another way of looking at it, and that is by narrowing down your choices. So if someone doesn't have a set goal, or like I have a passion for science, I have a passion for math, or whatsoever, they're able to at least say, okay, well, I know that business studies is not my path, computer studies is not my path, and it allows them to at least start to narrow things down. Because I will tell you, once students get to grade 12 and they start thinking about post-secondary education, and they start thinking about programs and getting on, future careers, etc., it's quite a daunting task, right? And when I was in high school, we had 5 years of high school, and that allows students to kind of like mature a little bit more and get to understand what the world is like around them a little bit more. But unfortunately, students are asked at a lot younger age to decide what they want to do with their future. So you want to make sure that you have some indication of what it is that you have a passion for. And maybe process of elimination is to try to exclude things that that you wouldn't want to pursue. So once you've had that time to really think about those things, I will often advise students to start speaking to people, right? To start speaking to those who have graduated, before you. Speak to those who are in those programs. Speak to people who are in that profession. There are a lot of career exploration opportunities in high school, and right from grade 9, you might have participated in Take Our Kids to Work Day. So you might have gone with your parents or a family member to their job, and the whole point of that opportunity was to give you an indication of what that certain career looks like, and maybe that might have piqued some interest in you. And then there are other things that that you can do. You can attend career fairs. You can do co-op, for example. So cooperative education is something that is available in high school, where you spend a considerable amount of time exploring a certain job area. You can go get a placement. I remember when I was in high school, I actually did co-op at Amex, American Express. So I was able to see the business side of things. So those are things that you can definitely go out and get that opportunity, get that experience. But you don't have to wait for those opportunities. Also, you can go out and volunteer. You can go into the community and job shadow someone, right? So if you have an idea, okay, well, I want to be a dentist, for example, then you can, reach out to your local dentist or someone in the community and say, okay, can I come job shadow you? Can I come and interview you, right? And ask questions about what does your job entail? What does your day look like? Because I find that a lot of times students, especially in grade 12, they want to go, sometimes they have an idea of what they want to go into, but they have no idea what that job entails. So it is a good idea to speak to people. The more people, the better. I had a student just last week come into my office and said that they want to study engineering. They knew they wanted to study engineering, but they were unsure of what field in engineering they wanted to study. So after much discussion, they kind of like narrowed it down and talked to mechanical engineering. And he said, I really like mechanical engineering. I just have no idea what it's about, right? So it's it's interesting that they had this passion for it, which alhamdulillah, that was great, but they had never spoken to anybody in the field. And so at the moment, I one of the teacher's brother was a mechanical engineer, so we literally called him up right away and had the student talk to him. And then they had a lot more clarity in terms of what they wanted to do afterwards, right? So speak to people, right? Speak to people in the community, speak to people at the masjid, speak to people in your class, and find out, what their elder siblings or what their parents are doing. So the more you talk to people, the more you network, the more you communicate, then the more knowledge you're going to get, the more the better approach you can take when it comes to career exploration. So aside from that, lastly, what I wanted to mention is the mindset going into thinking about careers. Now, as Muslims, we know, as Dr. Aisha had touched upon, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written a risk for us, right? So your what is meant for you will come to you. So that is something that is not just lip service, right? As Muslims, this has to be something that we believe in our heart and live by. So if we understand that to be true, then it's about going out there and thinking about, how can I impact the people around me? How can I impact society? How can I impact the community? Surrounding yourself where you're going to have multiple opportunities open. The best thing you can do is get into a position where the opportunities will come to you, right? And you do that by going out there, interacting with people, putting yourself out there. Just at our school alone, 3 of our teachers are former students of mine, right? When they were in high school, and they were outstanding students of mine back in high school. And then they went off, they did their undergraduate degrees and teachers college, and then they came right back and they applied for a job, right? So that connection they had with us was open doors for them, right? So the more opportunities you can have open for you, then the better it is, right? And then lastly, think about what you want to do, because hopefully you get into a career that you can stay with for a really long time, right? And maybe you're one of the lucky ones that gets into a career right out of graduate school or graduating university, and you stick with that until retirement. But in order for that to happen, you have to know that you will enjoy it. You have to see yourself doing that for a long time. You have to see what the opportunities for growth is, not just professional growth, but personal growth, right? Because a job is a part of who we are. A job is not who we are, right? It is something that reinforces who we are as people, but it doesn't define us. So making sure that you will have the opportunity to grow professionally and personally in your particular field. And inshallah, with that, then you can at least get into a space where you're happy to exit those doors and head off to work every single day, and that you feel that you've accomplished something in your life.
Awesome. Thank you. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. That's a lot of information that you've packed in a few minutes, mashallah. Let me see if there's any questions that have come from the audience. Brother Allah, any questions for Brother Riyadh?
There is a question to Dr. Aisha.
Okay, please.
Can we ask that, or?
Yes, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Sure. Brother Shabazz is asking, what advice Dr. Aisha would give to young girls for succeeding in professionals, in professional as well as personal lives?
Mm-hmm. I think that, subhanAllah, teaching, honestly, is a wonderful career option for females. And the reason is that, eventually, inshallah, if you end up having a family, it sounds very cliche, but you get the holidays off. And so, it's also a very, very, I have found it to be a very useful field to be in as a mother. It has helped me understand my own children better and, help me develop as a mother as well. I think, you don't have to be a great teacher to be a mother, but it helps. It definitely helps. And I think in terms of opportunities, there are a lot of opportunities available. But one of the things that Brother Riyadh mentioned was that the rules have changed slightly, and they have changed, for the better. So there are more opportunities. Lots of principals complain that, we have talented supply teachers that come to us, but we just can't hire them yet because there was this issue with seniority. So now that path has opened up. But it's a great career. For sisters, definitely.
Jazakallah khair. I have a question for Brother Riyadh. What do you see, Brother Riyadh, or Dr. Aisha, but I'll pose it to Brother Riyadh first, and Dr. Aisha can add to it later also. And the question is, what do you see as the authenticity or the success of these career aptitude tests? I know a lot of us taken it, and I took it too when I was back in the days, and I think they told me I should have been a magician or something, but it just, the computer kind of spits out something that's good for you based on what you feed. So are there more advanced tests like this that have good results, and what's your opinion, please?
Well, before we get into that, I want to see you pull a rabbit out of your hat. I think the audience would like to see that from you. I feel that those tests, there is some weight that you can put into it, more so to get a better understanding of who you are, and maybe what your what your interests are. You should definitely not use them as a hard and fast rule. Okay, the paper says this, as you said, the computer spits this out. Okay, well, I guess I have to go into that. That's definitely not the case. It's if you answer, a lot of it, it's really what you put in. So if you answer the questions truthfully, then you should be able to get something out of it that is relevant to what it is that you have an interest in. But it doesn't mean that if you don't get the results that you're looking for, it doesn't mean that you have to stop right there and say, well, the test told me I can't get into this field, so I shouldn't pursue it. Definitely not. But there's some weight to it, because a lot of these tests have been put together by experts, by people who has spent time researching these things as psychologists, etc. So there is some importance you can put in, but definitely not to the point where it should help guide you necessarily into that field.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Dr. Aisha, anything to add to that, please, regarding assessment tests, career guidance tests?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. These tests are sort of quite clever in that they do pick up on aspects of a person's personality, right? But ultimately, I liked what Brother Riyadh said in terms of just helping people, channel what are you good at. Usually the things that you're good at are the things that you enjoy. And as I said, there are people that enjoy everything, and I was in that category, and that made it very hard for me to really think about what do I want to do. That was very confusing. And then there are people who really don't seem to enjoy anything, and it's very hard for them, and that's a struggle. And I ask Allah to guide them and to make it easy for them. But I really think that the best advice I can give, as I said before, is to get those opportunities to grow and learn in real life. Because if you haven't worked and you haven't interacted with people and you haven't seen that aspect of life, it is very hard to know what your passions really are and to know how things look practically in the real world. And that sort of, it's also important because for young people, life is not about what you know anymore. Lots of people get a degree. When I was growing up, everybody didn't necessarily go to university. Now, quite a lot of kids get to go to university. So previously, you could leave university with a bachelor's degree and get a very good career. Now the minimum seems to be a master's. Everybody needs a master's because a simple bachelor doesn't seem to be good enough anymore. There's just too many people that have a bachelor's for you to stand out. So the thing that's going to make you stand out is, you know, that those life experiences and all the references that you collect along the way, all those connections you make with people, that makes a huge difference on your resume. Now you stand out. Voluntary work as well. So important to give back to the community, because ultimately, you know, you'll do it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it really benefits you because it shows that you're a caring person that's interested in giving back to society.
True. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you. There's one point that that was brought to me at one earlier, and that is the one of the things that our youth can think about is to merge different fields of academia, different fields of study, and make it a career. And I see both of you have done that. I mean, you've merged education with business and entrepreneurship. So congratulations to both of you for bringing those two fields together. And I'm sure if we have time later on today, we can talk about others that work the same way. You've touched on very key points, and I'm going to share a little story from personal experience that brings those two together. Dr. Aisha, you mentioned about the importance of kids to get involved from a young age so they can experience that whole social aspect. No two professionals in the same field are the same, and we know that. And what differentiates those two is the soft skills that they bring forth. And I'm going to share the story. We had a classmate friend of mine in dental school. He was an amazing, really bright, sharp guy. He was in the top 10 all throughout the 4 years, top 10 students of the class. After graduation, becoming a dentist, he landed a job, got fired in 2 months, landed another job as an associate and couldn't handle it, you know, was laid off in another month or so. After 2 or 3 attempts, he was so frustrated, he got his trucker's license and he was driving an 18-wheeler rig from the West Coast to the East Coast. And he did that for a couple of months and he loved it. That's after becoming a dentist, after going through 8 years of university. Anyways, at the end of the day, what happened is he became a professor because the teachers at our college, at university, were not happy with his career path and decided to help him out. And eventually he found his place. He found the drawback was socialization. He couldn't have customer relationships, you know, and that sort of thing, but he was able to teach really well. So that's an example of how, in my mind, how, you know, sometimes things don't work out and you have to tweak, you know, your soft skills in a manner or adjust your career to match your soft skills. So thank you for that. I'm going to check Brother Allah. Any questions for Brother Riyadh at the moment?
No questions.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Brother Riyadh. Jazakumullah khair. We're going to request Brother Ahmed now to come forth and please start your presentation.
Good. Can everybody hear me okay, first of all? Yeah. Cool. Okay, assalamu alaikum. Thanks everybody for having me today. So I want to start, you know, first to share a little bit about my story and you know, how I came to this panel, first of all, and why I'm, you know, I have some experience about this topic. So I'm originally from Egypt. I was raised there, and you know, my passion, you know, was mainly to be a pilot. I wanted to travel the whole world, and I thought, you know, being a pilot, you know, that would help me get to that passion because, you know, I'm very curious about, you know, different cultures, different, you know, areas of the world. So that's why I wanted to do a pilot. But, you know, when I had my high school, I got a very big grade that my parents, you know, told me, no, you got a big grade, you should go to engineering, you know, come on, you know, don't waste that big grade to go to pilot. You know, pilots get like 52%, you have 92%. So again, I ended up doing engineering, and then I said maybe I will go to aerospace, you know, but then I didn't really go there. I wanted to challenge myself. I always love to do those challenges. So I went to communication. So when I started to working in communication engineering, I worked with Motorola, and then they started flying me all over Egypt. You know, I had to work in different cities. I've explored the whole Egypt because of my work, and that again gave me that passion that I liked. And then I moved to Alcatel. They also flew me around all Africa and the Middle East. So I worked and traveled more than 14 countries all over the world. So I was happy. I was, feeling that I'm doing what I really like. And, that's because, it matches, my, let's say, mindset. So what I wanted to share today, coming from an engineering background, there is what is called 3 M's that you could have to achieve anything. And I will speak about each M at a time. And actually, Sister Aisha and Brother Riyad touched on those M's in different ways during their speeches. So again, I want to repeat what they mentioned. It's all great talks, but I want to speak about, the first M is the mindset. So the mindset, if you have a mindset that you destroy your beliefs, I mean, like, you keep putting yourself down, you keep saying, mistakes are bad, you shouldn't do any mistakes, that's a bad mindset. You put yourself in a position of, putting yourself in front of your way. So you actually, put yourself in a bad mindset that doesn't help you to grow, and you should try to understand that mistakes is part of the learning. You cannot really grow until you do some mistakes. You cannot really grow until you have that belief that it's part of the journey, and you keep going. So as Brother Riyad mentioned, be curious, be volunteer, meet people, learn from them, get to know other things that is happening around you, that you get that mindset growing, and then you understand how things grow. Because sometimes we think that pilot is something that you really want to do, like what I thought I would be. But when I thought about it afterwards, pilots, they're very tired. They just fly, they spend 2 days somewhere, and they have to come back, so they don't see the country, they don't see anything. But when I traveled with my companies, I spent like 2-3 months, in Ghana, in Djibouti, in Sudan, in different countries. So I meet people, I see culture, I see how they eat, how they celebrate, how they, bury people, all those kind of things made me grow in my mindset. So that's the first thing. And mindset is more of a belief. So if you believe you're not good enough, that's a bad mindset. You have to forget that mindset and try to replace it with something else that motivates you, that makes you really know what you want to do. The second M is motivation. So, motivation is very, very important. If you don't have that motivation, you will not do what you want to do. So if this thing that you want to do doesn't excite you, doesn't really, dose that dopamine in your blood, and you feel like you're really energized, you're really happy to do what you're doing, then it's not for you. And you keep asking yourself why you're doing that. Keep asking yourself why, and because when you get that why, then you will know why you're doing this, and it becomes your motivation. And then the third M is the method. So again, you could have a good mindset, you could have motivation, but you don't have the method. So and you don't know how to land that career or land that job. And again, today in this world, you could be anything. The sky is the limit. There is no actually let's say from what I'm seeing, and from the IT world, from what I'm seeing in automations and different perspective, there is no limits. Actually, it's all within your mindset, within your brain. So you can open up to anything that you want to do, literally anything. But you just have that mindset, have that motivation, had some methods. The degrees are just sometimes titles that we get hang up on. But it helps for sure. But again, without the progression, without the continuous development, you stay there. So don't hang up with just for a degree, that you think that the degree will get you this career or dream. It's your mindset that will get you that dream. It's your motivation, it's your methods, how you build that. And it's different from one person to another. So again, I don't want to speak a lot here, but there is so many ways for everybody, and there is no one size fits all. If you think again from engineering background, the Pareto rule, and for those who doesn't know the Pareto rule, it's the 80-20, which means like 80% of your successes, 20% of your successes comes from 20% of your actions. So you just need to figure those 20% that makes you that big, huge impact, the 80%. So what problem are you really solving? How big is that problem, so that that helps you get to in front of companies, and you maybe you open your own business, you become an entrepreneur. That mindset needs to be there, and again, it's your mindset. Yeah. Sorry, did I?
No, I was just saying no, thank you. In fact, if we can ask a question, would that be okay at this point?
Sure, yeah, please go ahead.
Any questions for Brother Ahmed so far, Brother Ala?
No questions here. Brother Ahmed.
Okay. Yeah. So actually, I'll pose a question to you, Brother Ahmed, on behalf of the audience. What you're in the you're right in the thick of the tech park and the tech business. What do you see? I know you mentioned that by the way, I hope there's no pilots on this audience, because that wouldn't be too good, But and you can still become a pilot, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, you should. You should. There's an airport right here, or training. But so the tech field seems to be a very comfortable market. A lot of parents I see, and a lot of kids come to me and they say, you know what, that's what my parent wants me to be. They want me to go into computers and engineering. And what do you see as the scope of the high-tech industry moving forward very quickly, and especially in the post-COVID era?
So, the IT or the high tech is in everything right now. So it's in education, it's in health, it's in, transportation. No industry can work today without the high tech, without the IT. So again, the sky is the limit. There is no borders now for IT, and it goes around in everywhere. What is your question is, the most, let's say, paid jobs in the IT sector, and it's mostly automation, it's mostly AI, it's mostly security. Those kinds of jobs are in high demand right now. The cloud computing, the big data, how do you analyze data analytics, how do you take a big load of data and process it in a way that provide you some good benefits or impact, that you solve a problem with it. So again, the IT is now in everywhere, and we're using those Zoom calls and Microsoft Teams, in our teaching, Google Classrooms every day now, and it become the normal. So
yes,
that answered your question.
Thank you. Yes. And very quickly, I'm going to ask one more before we move on to our next panelist, Brother Yusuf. With the I lost my train of thought. Oh yes, you mentioned some of the career workshops that you've helped put forth for a number of the masajids in Ottawa. Can you very quickly elaborate, from doing that, what kind of job opportunities did you see out there that were available for those people who you were helping to place?
Okay, so being an immigrant, and I came from different countries, and I worked in 14 countries before I came here. So when I came here, I lacked the knowledge. I didn't know the market. I didn't know what's out there, how I can really present myself, how I can show my value to this market. So I had to learn a lot. I had to expand. I had to be very curious. I went to Invest Ottawa. I went to all skills in Ottawa. I went to different workshops to understand, what's there and what's not there, and I get mentored by people. So, the jobs that is there, let's say in Ottawa specifically, is mostly governmental. So if you don't have, let's say, a security clearance within Ottawa, your chances to land a job is very minimum. So, this is something that in the checklist. If you don't have that, security clearance, it's, you will have that only the 20% of the jobs in Ottawa. Again, if you want to work in Ottawa. If you don't want to work in Ottawa, then definitely you have lots of opportunities. So in terms of the job that I mentor or facilitate, so I go through a process. We do first the assessment. We understand what that person brings as a value, and because this is very important. If that person doesn't understand his or her values and how they can deliver an impact to an organization, then it becomes difficult to understand how to facilitate or how to guide them to their career path. So first of all, you need to understand their path, their assessment, what are they good at, what are they not good at, where is the gap, what the market needs. Then you have to balance that gap, to meet the market, because at the end of the day, there's a market demand that they need some specific requirements. So you need to work on yourself to be available with those requirements to serve that organization. So that's what we start with. Then the second thing, we need to measure ourselves, how to measure our closeness to our target. And we do this through several ways again, so how many number of phone calls do you get from recruiters or HR every day or every week? How many jobs do you apply weekly? How many interviews do you get every week? And so on. So if you have to measure those numbers to see how close you are. So for example, if you applied for 10 jobs and you got 0 calls, then there's something wrong. You're not doing it, right? So either you don't know what's your capabilities, or you're shooting for the wrong market. So that gap needs to be, managed, and you have to keep changing. You have to keep updating, adapting to those requirements. So this is what we normally do in those workshops.
Perfect. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much.
No.
And thank you again. And then now I'd like to move on and request Brother Yusuf to, in the interest of time, we'll have, I'm sure there will be more questions. People are just opening up now. So those who can stay late, inshallah, our time is till 9:30, but usually it goes on till 10 o'clock with questions and answers. But I'd definitely like to give the opportunity for the panelists to say their, share their experiences, and then open it for questions again. So without further ado, Brother Yusuf, it's all yours, bro.
Thank you so much. A lot of the panelists here have more wisdom than I do, but I'll try to give my own take on how being a student is right now, within the pandemic and trying to grow up, in this culture. So the one thing that I really want to emphasize is, as a student, you have to be very open-minded to a lot of different things. And you can't just close something off because you haven't tried it yet. So an example is that when I was applying to my undergrad, I completely chucked engineering to the side. I didn't want to do it. I didn't like coding, but now I do coding in my day-to-day life. So it's very important to not be closed-minded. And the one thing that I think that is kind of being represented in our society today with education and schooling is actually the concept of learning. So it is very rare for someone to go into a job and say, how can I learn? I want to learn. I want to get better. So that is something, that's a key part of the mindset of kind of growing up as a high school student and transitioning, is how can you develop your learning skills? How can you apply those variety of skills? And I think a lot of teenagers, I remember when I was 17, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And, that's perfectly okay. Other panelists have echoed the exact same sentiments as I have. But the key things that I think that I did, and a lot of my other friends have done as well, is that you have to volunteer everywhere. It doesn't matter where it is, as long as it's Islamically permissible, of course. But try different ideas, try different experiences. And through those experiences, you may not know now, but maybe down the line, a volunteering experience at somewhere else can potentially help you excel at another job, down the road. So you never know how you can improve yourself. And I think one last thing, which I think is very important, which a lot of people my age have today, is trying to find your passion. A lot of people just simply speak about passion as it's something that is very easy to just nail down. But I know that other panelists have echoed saying that passion can be something that you're good at, which is true, of course. But I think that finding your passion is developed through experiences, and you have to put yourself out there, email people. A lot of people are scared these days of emailing someone. There's no harm of emailing someone. There's no repercussion to it. you have to volunteer. I know it's the pandemic right now, so it's a bit difficult, but try to find opportunities for yourself where you can try to learn and then project those ideas and say, hey, do you think I will like this? Do you think I've experienced this? So let's say volunteering in a hospital, you like volunteering in a hospital, the day-to-day operations, you know how it is, the environment, and then you can picture yourself. Do you think that you could work in this environment in a day-to-day life? So I think that's that's all the suggestions that I would give. And lastly, when applying to university, please, a lot of people do not do this. Go on the program's website and look at the course sequence. So, and you click on each individual course, and then you can see exactly what each course will be teaching you. This is kind of a very big oversight, which I've noticed. And I remember when I was helping some of my siblings with their applications, we went through every single course, and I was able to tell them that this is what this course is actually teaching you. It's not what it seems sometimes. And sometimes there will be courses which you do not like, and that's kind of the part of university. Not everything you do is something that you're going to be passionate about. There's going to be some classes which are harder than others and difficult than others, but that is one thing that I would love to suggest to everyone. So if there's any questions.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you, Yusuf. Just before we head into the questions, I'm just going to again sidetrack just a little bit. I want to take the opportunity. Brother Riyadh has joined us from Toronto. He was on a tight timeline, but he stuck around. And I just want to take the opportunity to, on behalf of the Academics Association, all of you, thank you, Brother Riyadh. Jazakumullah khair for taking the time to join us. You're welcome to stick around for as long as you can, and we won't get offended when you do have to leave us. If someone does have a question for Brother Riyadh right now, before we, give him the, the go ahead and he needs to exit, then please go ahead and ask that right now, or you can type it in. Brother Allah, are there any questions?
So there is a couple of questions and a comment. One for Brother Yusuf, but I will leave that after. Yes. One for probably Brother Riyadh or Sister Aisha, is that a sister says that's on Facebook. Something I've noticed that nowadays kids don't seem that ambitious, or they are happy what they do academically or satisfied, even though their grades are average.
Brother Riyadh, if you have the time, if you can please take that, give us a...
So if I can just clarify, so the question is, if we have students that have average grades that are not necessarily in line with their passions, or am I understanding?
No, it's the satisfaction of being average.
Oh, I see. So yeah, and that's a challenge, and especially nowadays with the pandemic and with the shutdown. Like, I didn't even go into that because that's a whole other topic. The things that we're noticing within the school and within the youth regarding mental health issues and lack of motivation and increased anxiety and depression, and the list goes on. Unfortunately, like this has really taken a toll on our youth. In fact, on all of us, right? Even as adults, and trying to face all of this and navigate through this pandemic. So it's a challenge trying to get students to be motivated, trying to get them to understand, to achieve higher than what they may fall back on, and they may be satisfied with just mediocrity sometimes, and getting them to understand that what I find personally is that students get so bogged down by the present, right? They don't necessarily think beyond where they are right now. So they're okay if they're in grade 11 and they're not doing well in grade 11 functions. They think, well, I'm definitely not a math student. I'm no good. I'm just gonna go and try to pass the test and maybe get the 50% of the credit, and they're okay with that. And that's definitely a challenge. That's a challenge for parents to get their child motivation and try to push them into a certain direction. It's hard for teachers in trying to really spark some interest into the students. So it is definitely a challenge, and it's becoming increasingly a bigger challenge just because of the times that we're living in. What I find, and again, this is me going back to my background in counseling. talk to the students, right? Talk to your child. Have real conversations with these students, and you'll start getting an insight into their thinking. And a lot of the times they themselves don't understand what they're feeling. They don't understand why I have no motivation. They don't understand why I'm facing this anxiety or I'm feeling this pressure. We met with our grade 11 students just last week, and we brought this very same question to them, like what are you experiencing? What are you going through? How can we support you? And they didn't have an answer. In fact, this one girl put up her hand and said, I don't know. I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know why I have no motivation, and I don't know how to get out of it. So sometimes it just takes a caring adult. Doesn't necessarily even have to be a parent, but a caring adult to sit down with these students and have real conversations with them, right? A lot of times they just need to talk it out. Oftentimes when I'm counseling students, I don't do most of the talking, right? I'll pose really, pointed questions to them, and they will eventually talk themselves out of it and then understand, wait a minute, this is why I'm feeling like this, right? Just earlier this year, I was counseling the student who was, experienced severe depression, anxiety, and I'm not a medical professional, but I was just trying to get them to talk it out. And they were experiencing that I have no motivation, I don't have any drive. And then after about almost 2 months of weekly counseling with that student, only now are they coming out of it. Only now do I see them walking the hallways and, getting back to their norm and see them interacting with their peers and getting to class and trying to do their work. So sometimes we have to just understand our students and our children a lot better. And that comes, in my opinion, from having sincere conversations with them, understand and creating safe space with them, talking to them and making them understand and believe that you are coming from a place where you care about them and not coming from a place where you're judging them. Because a lot of them think that they sit down with an adult, whether it be a parent, a teacher, a counselor, whoever, and they think that, oh, I'm sitting here, but I'm being judged. As I'm speaking, whatever I say, I'm just going to be judged, and I'm going to get criticism thrown back at me. So you have to try to, really, put on your active listening skills really strong and put them in a position to feel safe and have those really difficult conversations. I hope that somewhat answers the question.
Thank you.
Yes. Jazakallah khair, Brother Riyad. That's a lot of insight, mashallah. Thank you so much.
So question to Brother Yusuf.
Yes.
And Brother Riyad, don't be offended by what Brother Yusuf was about to say about Waterloo, because it's a question about that. So the question says, my son wants to enroll in Waterloo's computer program, but he says it's very stressful as compared to local universities in Ottawa. What do you suggest? Jazakumullah khair.
Okay, so I have a lot of friends that have gone to Waterloo from high school, and it's true that it is more stressful compared to the universities in Ottawa, but I personally believe that just apply, of course, and you can kind of decide later once you have all the options in front of your head. But the U Ottawa and Carleton engineering programs are still good. U Ottawa, especially software engineering, their co-op program, they have mandatory co-op now, and that means that they provide you a job placement, and if you're above a certain GPA, I assume. And then, so my advice would be that apply to Waterloo. It is more stressful. I'm not going to deny that or sugarcoat it. It is more stressful because the course load is more. And but obviously, staying at home with Ottawa, I've had experiences with friends who've stayed at home and didn't choose to go to Waterloo, and they're happy with their decision as well, because having your family around you while you're still only 17 it's a blessing as well. So you don't have to do as much as if you're living alone. So I hope that answers your question.
Jazakumullah khair. That's all the questions that I have, Dr. Ashfaq.
Okay. I'm just going to ask the audience, are there any students here, any youth here that have any questions for Yusuf? Anything that they're feeling, anything that they need to clarify? I guess
So I have a question. I still consider myself youth.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So my question ties into all of the things that you have said. So as Dr. Aisha Shirazi mentioned in the beginning that early on, like when I was graduating, life was pretty simple. You know the path. You go to university, you take a job, and you kind of keep working at it. But now it's become very complicated. And some places I read that you go to if you are a person who goes to university or goes to a high school, then goes to university, does what the university asks you to do, get marks, and actually you have sort of wasted your time unless you do something extra stuff like beyond what is taught in the curriculum. What do you say about that? I want to ask Yusuf that.
So the courses that you take in university their intention is to give you a foundation and try to build upon that foundation. When it comes to studying those specific courses, you just need to kind of follow what the professor says within their syllabus. You don't need to go beyond for that specific course because often or not, the professor will only be testing you on that the specific concept which they speak about in their lectures.
Mm-hmm.
With regards to going beyond simply your courses, because the world is much more competitive these days, and I've seen it's very difficult to get jobs because a lot of people have a lot of multidisciplinary skills. I agree that you need to do more than simply just studying. Working while studying is very difficult, and I wouldn't recommend doing that in first year because you kind of don't know how to manage your time. But I would also recommend to do there's a lot of extracurriculars on university campus. You can, for example, I write at the Science Journal. I write for the newspaper. And then you can also, all of these clubs, extracurriculars that you do, volunteering, it looks very, very, very important on a job application because it will separate you from the rest. So it's very difficult to separate yourself from the pack these days, and potentially dabbling in a lot of different fields and areas will obviously strengthen you for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question here from Brother Taimur Abbasi, probably to the teachers here. So I'll read it here. Assalamu alaikum. What I see in this society is that there are a lot of careers like long haul trucking or trades that pay very close to a teacher or an engineer. We don't want our kids to go into those fields, but sometimes kids do not see the benefit of working a lot harder to become an engineer or to a doctor. How should we approach this as a parent?
Did you want me to address that?
If you want.
Yes.
I can. I think the world needs people in every field. And I think how our kids navigate the world should be based on the values that we've raised them on. I can understand parents becoming concerned that, maybe in the community we have this ideal view of what excellent careers are. But ultimately, as an educator, I see, for example, some boys especially really struggle to stay motivated because we're not necessarily constantly giving hands-on activities and things in the classroom. Increasingly, kids are behind a screen, especially at the moment. And that has an impact on our kids. So I understand parents' concerns. I will tell you that, people in the trades financially can be very well off and do well. It depends on the field. I know if you've ever called out an electrician, it can be really expensive. so I don't think, I know that having grown up in that traditional family unit, I know that initially my parents were exactly the same, and they said you should be a doctor or a dentist, or, and I didn't like science. So that was very, very daunting for me. And then my father said, architect. And so honestly, I tried that for a year and absolutely hated it, and ended up going back to school and having a long, hard think about what I wanted to do. And so I think society sort of is one of the things that concerns me, is that society is geared towards kids doing what makes them happy. Everything is about happiness. You should be happy. And of course, as parents, we want to see our children happy, but we also want to raise them having strong work ethic and, caring about others and those things. So I think if our kids are good people, and I keep coming back to giving back to society and pushing themselves to do good things for others, our masjids are built by tradespeople, right? And alhamdulillah, it's not easy for us to adjust, but I think we are going to have to be open. I would rather see my kids employed and doing good work and staying on the straight path than being unemployed and depressed and fed up that there isn't a job out there for them, even though they worked hard. So it's tough.
Thank you, Jazakallah khair, Dr. Aisha. Yes, and if I may add to that, I mean, that's an excellent question, because that's one that we get often, and I see that, and that was something I was going to pose, where a lot of the kids we see now, the second, third generation children, do have an interest. I mean, they look at the trades and they look at becoming a plumber, an electrician, or a carpenter. And I can tell you, by knowing people in those professions here today in this country, I mean, they have excellent lifestyles. They make a great living. They have great lifestyles, and some of our kids see that, and they're not shy to sort of start thinking about those careers. But I think, if I may add to what Dr. Aisha said, and this is my personal opinion, I think one of the things that we as parents probably focus a lot more on is that degree or diploma, and not as much on the soft skills. And if you look at it, and Brother Ahmed mentioned this earlier too, the soft skills that pertain to public speaking, that involve networking, that may involve conflict resolution, conflict management, all these soft skills that again come with, as Yusuf said, getting involved, being, doing things from a young age. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm 3 years old and I know that I want to become a pilot, but it's from a young age, getting them involved and active. And then with that, they develop these soft skills. These skills, I think, will help our kids pivot, wherever they are, whenever it is. Look at the era now. We're living in a post-COVID era, which is totally different than it was 9 months ago. So in this time and day and age, and moving forward, we need to make sure that we empower our kids with those skills that allow them to pivot, whether it's from one career to another, one country to another, dealing with one kind of individual to dealing with another kind of individual. But it's going to be hard, because now we're seeing everything is becoming antisocial. So with those skills, hopefully they'll be able to fly. I mean, they can soar, and they can make their own, they can carve their own path and develop their own careers. And I think that's a skill set that we need to, if we haven't started encouraging that, we need to start encouraging that, in our homes. So.
I think just to piggyback, because I'm a student and I can kind of give a different perspective. Whenever a parent suggested those prototypical fields, my view is that the parents want the best for their children, and then they want them to live comfortably. And it's when you're that young age, it's kind of difficult to wrap your head around that concept. So that's what whenever your parents are talking to you, they just want the best of you. So for you, those specific career paths, I believe that maybe a couple of years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, they're kind of seen as undesirable and nobody really wanted to do it. Therefore, the pay has gone up for those specific careers as well, because there's less people that are doing it. So I think that's kind of what I think. And I always implore people to always talk to their parents, because they just want the best for their child. So
Well, I mean, just a few days ago, my daughter came to me and she was a little hesitant to bring this up, but she said, I really don't like working in a lab. And I said, what do you mean? You're studying sciences. What do you mean you don't like working in a lab? And she says, I don't want to be dealing with test tubes and petri dishes and all this kind of stuff. So I said, well, what kind of research do you want to do? And she says, I want to go to the Arctic and study polar bears. And I said, okay. And but she said, Mom doesn't want to let me go unless Dad goes with her. So, so that's a challenge, I guess, for me now, is
one of the things I wanted to say was, I remember when I was young, and I went through that challenge of not enjoying architecture, and then I decided that I should try different things. So I tried in the summer to, actually I wasn't allowed to wear my hijab at the workplace that I worked at. It was just a shoe store, and they said it wasn't part of the uniform. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But because of that, I started exploring other opportunities and started calling different companies. And I think, our reality has to be that sometimes, opportunities will open up for us in those times of difficulty. But it is very tough to motivate young people and get them out and about and putting themselves out there. But that's what this life is about.
True. Thank you. I have a question here for Brother Yusuf, posed by a brother. The question is actually for all the panelists, especially for Brother Yusuf, about students' ability to focus in this distracted world. Is this a growing problem? And is this somehow hindering the students' plural ability to stick with anything for long enough to establish if that's something that they're passionate about? As you know, passion is a function of time you spend on something and eventually become better than the pack. What are your thoughts on this? Jazakallah khair.
okay. So I think as I've been growing up, smartphones especially, probably the biggest distraction. Social media distraction is probably the biggest issue of, I think, my generation right now. It's very difficult to just put the phone away and then just focus and study without checking your phone always. So yes, I definitely agree with that. I've also dealt with this problem because I like looking at my phone. So but the best way to deal with this is you have to I just hide my phones when I need to study so I don't get tempted to look at it. Or there's some apps that lock your phone for a specific amount of time, and if you study for that amount of time, then once you're finished, then you can go back and you can check your messages or whatever that you wanted to do. I'd also recommend that to not push your child to study for, let's say, 6 hours in a row. I always recommend, focus for, let's say, if you want to focus for 2 hours, you take a little break, then you get back to it. That'll definitely result in more efficient studying, and they will probably learn more as well. So that's what I think about distractions. Passion is a result of function of time you spend on something. I agree to that to an extent. If you do spend more time on something, you do get better at it, which is true. Passion is, I think that it's very difficult to quantify passion, but the way I look at it is, if you want to continue to learn more about that specific subject, then it's a good indication whether you want to move forward as well. So that's what my thoughts are.
On the panelists.
Thank you. Brother Ahmed, any views from a tech point of view, and what you think for that question?
Yeah, so I think we're all facing this distraction from smartphones, social media, Facebook, peer pressures. We see lots of great people posting, nice things about themselves, and sometimes we get, thinking, that, why don't we be like those people? So that, becomes a stress and pressure on us. Right now, what we've been doing, we're outsourcing our brain to the smartphone, and we our brain becomes a little bit lazy. We think, when we use the calculator in the smartphone, when we use the contact list, not like before. We used to remember all phone numbers. We used to calculate everything manually. That make us have that brain power. Nowadays, we're just outsourcing this to the smartphone, which affects our ability to focus. That makes us more distracted, less focus, and affects our mood, affects our day-to-day productivity. So what I advise everybody is, in the first hour of the day after you wake up, don't use your smartphone. Try to focus on what you really want to achieve from that day, and what is your to-do list, and what is your not to-do list. Because sometimes we do things that we don't really was supposed to do it. So it's important that you create a to-do list and not to-do list, because both lists are important for you to get that productivity from the day, whether you're a student or a professional.
Sure.
That's excellent advice, mashallah.
Thank you.
Dr. Aisha, would you have anything to say on that subject, please, or that question?
No, I think Yusuf spoke to it very well. The previous brother also spoke to it very, very well. Mashallah, they both provided really good tips. I think the reality is that all our kids are growing up in an environment where everything happens instantly, and it's very tough to focus because everything happens instantly. It's tempting to do lots of things at the same time, and what we're realizing is that actually slows us down and makes it harder to focus. So my advice is certainly for kids. I know with my kids and with my students as well, the younger you are, you sort of need to build so that you can do things for longer and longer and longer, and eventually they learn to sit for longer and be able to focus. So even if it's just someone very wise who passed away in the community, Sister Nahid Gawad, said to me, people put out all the toys for their kids and leave them to play, and then they make a mess. And she said one of the things that I found very interesting was to take out, one thing and let your child play with it, and then put that away, and then take out something else when they are young, because otherwise they don't learn to really build those skills at play. And it was a very wise thing. So I think when it comes to focusing, adults have trouble with this and kids have trouble with it, and it's because of the environment that we're in. So I really liked the advice that both had given previously.
Thank you. And I have one question for Dr. Aisha. Are we seeing a paradigm shift in how we propose or how kids are selecting careers now between men and women, between girls and boys? Should there be a distinction? I mean, back in the days, there was some careers that were ideal for women and not for men, and vice versa. What do you say about now and the future?
It's very interesting. I will tell you what I observe in the school system. One of the guidance counselors that I worked closely with in the public school system said to me, "What is your community going to do?" And I found this a very interesting question. I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Girls are doing amazingly at school. They're getting really good grades and they're very successful. And boys, not so much." And so what she said to me was that you are going to have a community. What's that?
Except Yusuf.
except Yusuf. But I've known Yusuf since he was 1. He's always been special. He's an exception, mashallah. So I think, you know, what she said was that you're going to end up with a situation where you'll have lots of very talented, overachieving females, you know, and then perhaps not so, you know, accomplished men. And how will they match, you know, where, at the end? How is the community going to reconcile that? I mean, you're smiling. You have a son. I have a son as well. It is challenging. Girls are doing well in all fields, and mashallah, it's nice to see that. And you know, there is a struggle currently in terms of just having women respected as well, you know, and not have to put up with abuse. But there's also a global movement for fairness and equity. And I think it's important that our girls are a part of that movement as well. We should be supporting our daughters. I always get happy when I see females doing unusual things, because, you know, I always feel we have so much to offer as an ummah. And, you know, the world is changing, but I mentioned that a teaching career is great for a woman, because ultimately, you know, there's lots of ajr outside the house, but there's a lot of ajr at home as well. And so you want to have something that gives you that flexibility. But now, you know, lots of jobs. I mean, Canada is great for parental leave as well. And I think that, you know, it is challenging. Boys are maybe harder to motivate in the classroom. Education hasn't changed much, but the world has. So it's not easy.
I just wanted to add something. I think someone asked about women's career options before, and I think that women are able to do any career that a man can do most of the time. I know engineering is often, women are very underrepresented in engineering, and I know that, you know, my sister's in engineering, and I know other people that have gone into engineering as well, and they've done awesome, right? It's not just a men's only profession. So I think that a lot of these societal standards that have been, you know, that seem abnormal to some people now, it's normal. You know, women can do everything that a man can do, you know, education-wise, job-wise. So I think that's something as well to look at.
So I have another question. Can I ask? Is it okay?
Yes, yeah. And there is another question, and I'll ask it after you, Brother Mahmoud. A sister has asked a question for Yusuf. So please go ahead, and then I'll pose that question after yours.
Yes. So going to university outside your own town, city. So my question is around that. You know, I see many of my friends who are Muslim, and then there is a Chinese friend, there is Indian friends, and there is white. You know, I hang out with all kinds of people. So I talk to them about a lot of these things. And I find that Muslim parents are very reluctant to send their kids to university, you know, outside their own city. You know, if you're living in Toronto, you're going to U of T. If you're living in Ottawa, you're going to U of Ottawa or Carleton. Even though kids are doing quite well and they want to go outside and they're quite capable, to good universities. I'm not saying Ottawa is not a good university. What I'm saying is that, you know, if somebody wants to do computer science in Waterloo or math in Waterloo, the parents are actually in the way of that decision. So what, you know, as a parent, I can understand, as a Muslim parent, I can understand the challenges your child might face. But what do you see? I mean, I'm going to ask to, you know, Yusuf and Sister Aisha. I know Adam went to Queens, so you have experience with that. So can you speak something about that? Like, what is this? How do we make that decision? How do you deal with this question?
I can go first, I guess.
Go ahead, Yusuf. Yeah.
I would encourage people to look at it objectively first, just strictly on the program. I know that other universities do have better programs which set your child up to be more successful in the future because of their connections with jobs at various firms. So I would look at comparing the program at, let's say, the home university like Ottawa or Carleton, and compare it to another university. So for Waterloo, for example, their co-op program and the name brand of that university is unmatched across Canada. And if your child is able to be successful there, their future will most likely be at a different stage compared to a Carleton graduate. But it doesn't mean that a Carleton graduate cannot be successful either. So I would look at the connections that the universities have, the co-op programs, and potentially even what your child likes is not even offered at this university, Ottawa or Carleton. So I would look at that as well.
From a personal point of view, I always tell parents, you have to know what Yusuf said is absolutely right. Obviously, first look at the programs, but also, look at your child and decide together. You have to make these decisions together. Actually, Adam got accepted locally. He also got accepted to Waterloo, and he also got into Queen's. And we visited Queen's. We visited Ottawa U, and it just didn't feel amazing. It didn't feel like an amazing experience to me. I thought about it long and hard. We went to Queen's and we just felt that it was just a very good program. The way that the staff and the supports that are in place there, we felt that that would be a good fit. But we also, I tried to sort of, it's very difficult. So my situation is a bit unique. I taught my own child for 4 years and have worked very closely with both of my kids. But I was given a lot of freedom when I was younger, and I want my kids to experience that independence so that they learn to make the right choices. I don't feel threatened by that, because and if they make the wrong choices as young adults, then I can make dua and pray to Allah to guide them. But ultimately, I think we have to do our best. I think you have to look at the financial aspect as well. It's a huge cost. And if it comes down to that, then you have to be sensible. If that is a huge thing in your family, then you have to have those honest conversations with your kids as well and say, so-and-so may have gotten to go, but we won't be able to afford that. Living out comes with its own costs and its own perils, and it's not easy.
True. And if I may add to that, I know Brother Mahmoud asked the question of girls versus guys, and definitely, I mean, that sort of double standard in a good way, for protection, and and that's the angle that I think majority of parents look at, and hopefully if the kids understand that, that would be great. You're absolutely right. The financial factor is there. There's always pros and cons for moving out and moving to a different city. I'm
very aware as a parent that what I allow my son to do, I know in today's world, my daughter will, certainly think that's what's going to be okay for me. And so I think, as parents, we have to be careful what choices we make. We realize that. But at the same time, it comes down to the child, their personality, what experiences you have, what relationship you have with each other, how open they are with you about where they're going and what they're doing and who they're seeing. And, if you have that already with your child, then you'll probably be comfortable regardless, right? And if you are not feeling comfortable, then trust your instincts, because if something doesn't feel right, of course pray istikhara. It's a very easy way. Ask Allah to guide you to what is best.
Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting because just a few days ago, my girls were posing the same question to me, and they said, Dad, you are who you are because of the fact that how I was living on my own at age 17, and so
That's right.
to answer that question, there's other sort of soft skills that we talked about that, those come into play. Like when you live on your own, you're going to learn to cook, learn to do your own laundry, time management, making use of your.
This is the amazing thing I found very shocking, that I learned when I lived in residence as a student. I lived out for university, and we had a joint kitchen, so you got your own room, and then we had a joint kitchen and everybody could cook and so on in res. And now residences don't really have kitchens where you can cook. So Adam, signed up to a meal plan, for example, and that's an added expense. And then if he doesn't have a meal plan, then he's pretty much eating out. And so that I found that really disturbing. But the thing is that it was a very good social mechanism for him to meet new friends and to get a social life, right? But that being said, 100%, you do gain a lot of skills in terms of just survival skills. One of my professors partied a lot and said, she was much older, but she said when in her youth, she partied a lot and spent her money and then didn't have enough to eat. So ate chocolate for practically a whole semester, like just survived on chocolate, and wouldn't advise it to any of her students. But you learn these things. They're very harsh, difficult lessons to learn, but it depends on the person, it depends on the child, it depends how well you know your kids.
True. Jazakumullah khair. So I think we're hitting 10 past 10. What we'll do is try and wrap up within 5 minutes, inshallah. I will pose the question that a sister was asking, and it's for Yusuf, and then we'll take it to wrap up after that. The question is, Yusuf, what type of peer pressure do youth face in high school, and how can they motivate themselves to focus on learning and making good friends?
Okay, I think this question's asked a lot everywhere, but I think the main thing that you need to kind of instill when everyone is growing up is you should not be afraid of your Muslim identity. You should be proud to be Muslim. You have to explain to your kids why you're Muslim, why this is the correct way of life, and then they'll be proud of their identity, because being a Muslim is part of your identity, right? And I felt like that helped me a lot. When I was going through high school, I went to a public school, so I didn't go to any other different types of other schools. But being proud that you're Muslim, it's it's kind of a blessing in itself, because all of the other things that are happening in high school, when you grow up, you realize it was just a big waste of time, and then you didn't do them yourselves, right? So I think that's the best way to do so. And if you can find people who enjoy the same things as you, who don't participate in all of the things that typical high schoolers do, that will also help them, because their thought process is aligned. So if they don't go to any of those social events or parties or anything like that, or don't do any of those things that are considered haram, that will also help. So having like-minded individuals around you who do, of course, care about school, but who are well grounded in their deen, or if I have a friend who's very practicing Christian individual as well, and he is very diligent as well, and does not indulge in any of these other extracurricular activities too. So I always recommend to just be on the same wavelength as any other individuals, and just be proud that you're Muslim. I guess it's as simple as that.
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much. Brother Ahmed, before we wrap up, any last quick thoughts or suggestions that you have for the audience?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for everybody for having me today, and I'm open networker. So if anyone wants to network with me, if anyone have any questions, follow-up questions afterwards, I posted my email on my LinkedIn profile as well. So feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to help you, mentor you. I was there before. So many people helped me to be where I am today. So I'm happy to help others. And I just want to remind everybody about the 3 M's. Again, this is something that you have to keep in your mind all the day, whether it's career, whether it's a goal, whether you want to lose weight, whether you want to, memorize Quran, those 3 M's will make a lot of difference in your whole life. So motivation, mindset, and methods. You have to keep doing what you want to do in those 3 M's, and then accordingly, it will guide you to what you really want to achieve.
MashaAllah. Barakallahu feekum. Thank you so much. Jazakumullah khair. I'll end it with 2 points that we didn't get a chance to talk about, but I leave it as a thought for people to ponder on, inshallah. One of the questions that we didn't get to today is, Islamically, are there any fields, careers that are forbidden? So that's something that maybe our kids can even think about. What are some of the things that we shouldn't be getting involved in, that promote activities that are forbidden or non-permissible in Islam? So that's a factor that we also should look at when we're looking at careers. We talked about how generally the train of thought is we want to encourage our kids and to go into the traditional fields. You know what they are: engineering, medicine, law, that sort of thing. But I want to mention a quote that one of the scholars, a well-known scholar, he had said that it addressed this particular subject on careers and education, and his question was, who's doing the thinking for the ummah? Who's doing the thinking? And he says, yes, these are all skilled laborers that we have in different fields, but he was encouraging us to get into all sorts of fields that involve human engagement. That is history, theology, journalism, humanities, sociology, psychology, all of which are mentioned in the Holy Quran. So it's something that to open up our minds, and hopefully the young generation will open their minds to this and make careers out of these different fields which involve human engagement and interaction. So once again, Jazakumullah khair to everybody, to the audience for taking the time out. It's late on a weeknight. Thank you again for joining us. All the panelists, Dr. Aisha, Brother Riyad, Brother Yusuf, Brother Ahmed, thank you so much for all the insights, and sharing your expertise, your knowledge, and for the organizers from KMA for doing a fantastic job in bringing this event together. Thank you very much. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.